Looks like the whole family is here now, huh? My dad and brother nodded at Mom's words, grinning as they looked at me. Then, as my dad stepped on the gas, the car started moving. "Wait, hold on. Don't leave me behind." I yelled out loud, but the car showed no signs of stopping and kept moving further away. Unbelievable. I stood there, stunned, feeling as if the last thread of connection with my family had snapped inside me. I won't expect anything from this family anymore. There's no need for me to worry about them anymore. I thought, I'll make them regret making me angry. My name is Abby, and I'm 32 years old. Since I was young, I was never really cherished by my family. My parents always doted on my brother, Kevin, and were cold to me. My brother was indeed handsome and was always praised by everyone around. "Your brother has a promising future. He must be popular." Every time our relatives gathered, they would say this, laughing and patting his head, and even as a young child, I felt something was off. But my family kept bragging about him and caring only about him. To them, I was as insignificant as air. Compared to my glamorous brother, I was plain and liked to study. I felt most at peace when I was in my room, facing my desk at home, and I think I've worked hard in my own way. When my grades improved and I was praised at school, I even reported it proudly to my family a few times. "Look, I was the top of my class on this test." I was happy to show them my report card. But my dad just glanced at it and said indifferently, "Well, as long as you're trying hard, that's good," and quickly returned his attention to the TV. As for my mom, she'd say, "But your brother, you know," and turn the conversation back to him. Another kid in the neighborhood confessed to him, "You know, all the moms always praise him. He's good-looking and taller than others his age, so it's natural he's popular." Whenever I tried to talk, my mom would just change the subject to something completely off-topic. I'd wonder why that happened, but I had no one to ask. So, I just kept focusing on my studies. The loneliness I felt within my family eventually became my sole motivation. I decided to escape this house and live on my own strength. I immersed myself in my studies and somehow managed to get a scholarship and got accepted into college. My family wasn't particularly surprised, and my dad said with a flat expression, "If you're paying your own way through college, that's fine." My mom, as usual, looked down on me and laughed. "You know, you should do something about your appearance instead of just studying all the time." I studied hard even after going to college. I knew that my life wouldn't start unless I became independent. By my senior year, I was focusing hard on earning credits so I could concentrate on job hunting. I eventually got a job, and that's when my own life finally started. When I first lived alone, I felt a bit lonely at first, but more than that, I felt an overwhelming sense of liberation. I could read as much as I wanted, think as much as I wanted, without having to mind anyone's eyes or feelings. Living away from my family was a symbol of freedom for me. Even after I started working, my life was fulfilling, and I enjoyed my job immensely. I relished the feeling of absorbing new knowledge and gaining skills every day in a new environment. More than anything, I was happy that there was a place where my efforts were recognized. As I received praises from my boss and exchanged opinions with my colleagues, I gradually felt that I belonged here. And just like that, over 3 years had passed. One day, a friend from my college days, with whom I had been close, approached me with a business idea. "You're good with IT, right? How about we start a company together?" It was a casual invitation, but I remembered his action-oriented nature and innovative ideas from college. After some thought, I accepted his offer and stepped into a new challenge. As the company started to take shape, I dove even deeper into my work. Working for a company I helped build was not only enjoyable but also a source of pride. However, even in this fulfilling life, the occasional contact from my family still made me feel depressed. Every 2 or 3 years, as the end of the year approached, I'd get calls from my mom or brother saying, "Come home for New Year's at least," almost forcing me to return home. Reluctantly going back, my brother would still make fun of my appearance. You're still as dull as ever. Laughing through his nose, I couldn't say anything back, and neither my mom nor dad did anything but seemingly enjoy watching my reaction. Conversations with my family always felt like time had stopped, always the same, laughing at my appearance and endlessly talking about how wonderful my brother is. Inside, I thought, enough, I don't care. But outwardly, all I could do was smile. Of course, I never mentioned to my family that I had started a new company or that I was successful in my job. They didn't care about me, so I decided to stop expecting anything from them. When my brother boastfully said, "I plan to earn even more from now on," I just nodded along while scoffing inside. Then one day, I received a call from him. "I'm getting married. Make sure you attend the ceremony." As always, he told me in a cold, condescending tone. My mom also said, "Make sure you prepare properly. It's your brother's big day." I just responded briefly with okay. My family knew nothing of my work or my life, and they continued to look down on me as an insignificant existence. I had long since given up any affection in their indifference and coldness and had gained the strength to stand on my own. As my brother's wedding day approached, and I heard that there had been a meeting between the two families, I was dragging around a gloomy feeling. Honestly, I wasn't looking forward to family gatherings at all. I was still treated as just an accessory to my brother, and just being seen that way made my heart heavy. However, contrary to my feelings, the meeting between the families had apparently already taken place. I was surprised for a moment when I read the message about it. "What, it's already done?" I said aloud to myself in my room, but deep inside, there was no hint of sadness, just surprise. I wondered half-jokingly if it was better that I wasn't there as I reread the message's content. The short message from my parents said, "The meeting went smoothly. Kevin's fiancée is a very nice girl, and we're happy to have her join our family." For a moment, I was curious about how they introduced me to her family, but I quickly thought, well, who cares who my brother marries? After all, my existence was probably nothing more than a trivial topic to my family from the start. With that thought, I let myself get caught up in the busyness of my days. I have my own life and plenty to do. My family's circumstances are hardly important to me now. Then one day, an invitation to my brother's wedding arrived. Wrapped in a deep blue envelope, it had a formal texture that made me feel somewhat tense as I held it. "My brother is actually having a proper ceremony," I said with a bitter smile as I opened the envelope. Inside was information about the venue. This place. That venue. The venue was actually a business ally of mine. The company I began with my college friend has now been around for 7 years and has developed into a corporation that manages a variety of businesses. We had gone public 2 years ago and gained a fair reputation in the industry. And that wedding venue had been an important business partner of ours for several years. "I can't believe my brother is getting married at my business partner's venue." I burst out laughing alone. The irony of the coincidence was a bit amusing, but more than that, I was happy to think that I might actually enjoy this occasion. The food at that venue is delicious, and the staff are well trained with top-notch service. I remember being moved by their attentive care and consideration when I visited for business before. Well, since I'm here, maybe I'll go say hello to some of the venue staff during the ceremony? As I thought about this, I placed the invitation I had received on my desk. However, I haven't told my family anything about my company, so my brother wouldn't even dream that I have a connection to this venue. He probably isn't that interested in my job anyway, so well, whatever, I smiled again. Honestly, I don't want to attend the wedding. It's uncomfortable being among family, and I can easily imagine being ridiculed by my brother and mom for my appearance and demeanor. But knowing the ceremony is at a venue I do business with, I felt a bit lighter thinking at least I could enjoy the food. That night, I revisited some details about the venue and thought about mentioning in the next scheduled meeting that my brother's wedding would be held there. It was surprising even to myself that the thought of my brother's marriage could bring me a slight sense of amusement. As the wedding day approached, I had a chance to meet with the president of the venue for a business discussion. I hadn't given much thought to my brother's wedding amidst my busy days, but hearing about the meeting at the venue suddenly brought the wedding day to mind. On that day, I arrived at the president's office with my usual business documents. The president welcomed me warmly as always, and I quickly switched to business mode to start the discussion. After talking about work for a while, I casually brought up the topic. By the way, I'll be attending my brother's wedding here soon. Oh, is that so? I wasn't aware. Whose wedding is it? My brother, Kevin Clark, is getting married. As I said this, the president replied with a bit of surprise. Kevin, you say? That's my daughter's fiancé. What, your daughter? I was momentarily lost for words. The fact that my brother was marrying the daughter of the venue's president was an unexpected revelation, and I felt a mix of surprise and complex emotions. It's unexpected to think that Kevin's sister is you. But that's funny, the family stories I've heard are quite different. I see. What kind of stories about my family? I encouraged the president to continue, feeling a bit perplexed. Well, actually, your brother and parents said that you work at a small company in the countryside, busy and unable to come back here often, so you couldn't attend the family meeting. The president said this with a somewhat apologetic smile. I see, that's what they said. I replied with a wry smile. My family doesn't know that I run a major company and have a solid connection here, so they introduced me as an insignificant sister working at a small local company. I shrugged involuntarily. The president noticed my complex expression and frowned slightly with concern. I might have asked something impolite. No, not at all. I continued with a forced smile. I've never been very important to my family. They always doted on my brother, and no matter how hard I tried, my family never paid any attention to me. The president nodded solemnly, showing deep sympathy. Yet you've made your own way so impressively. I respect that, especially given such a family background. Those words unexpectedly touched me. I'm not used to being praised, so I felt my face heat up a bit. Thank you, I murmured. The president's kind words felt somewhat comforting, but soon, a complex feeling returned. I couldn't help but feel mixed about the president's daughter marrying someone like my brother. Just, honestly, I wonder if someone as wonderful as the president's daughter should marry someone like my brother. I spoke my mind candidly. The president looked a bit surprised, but eventually smiled slowly. Well, she chose him, so all I can do is hope for her happiness. That's true, it's not my place to say. Yet, I had one concern. If my family found out about my work and success, the resentment I had been subject to might lead to complications, especially now that I knew the wedding was at the president's venue. So, there's one thing I'd like to ask, Mr. President. I started seriously. I've kept my work from my brother and parents, so could we please keep this quiet and proceed with the ceremony without stirring things up? The president looked at me thoughtfully for a moment, then nodded kindly. Understood. If that's your wish, I won't mention anything unnecessary. Thank you. I felt a bit relieved and deeply grateful. I was truly glad the president was understanding. Then he smiled and added, Even so, Abby, you are a remarkable person. I would like to tell my daughter how lucky she is to have such a wonderful sister-in-law. I replied with some hesitation. Thank you. I had never been called wonderful before, so his words were deeply touching. While I had some doubts about my brother's choice, it was their chosen path, and not for me to judge. I also decided not to stir up my own emotions against my family, but to continue on my own path. As I quietly adjusted my feelings, the day of my brother's wedding finally arrived. Honestly, the thought of spending time with my family was depressing, but it was an important day as I was there to witness my brother's new beginning. I reminded myself of this as I prepared to go directly to the venue from my home following the invitation, but the day before, my mom called. Put on the right outfit, I want to see it for myself, so head to my house first. Her tone was as commanding as ever. Internally, I thought, why now? But to avoid any unnecessary trouble at the wedding, I did as instructed and headed to my parents' house early in the morning. Upon arrival, my mom scrutinized me from head to toe and sighed exaggeratedly. "Is that really what you're wearing? Well, I guess that's the best you can do, huh?" My mom said with a thin smile. "I'm perfectly dressed." I replied sullenly, but she ignored me and started giving various directions. My brother also crossed his arms and laughed through his nose. "You really can't pull off fashion, can you?" "Well, that's fine, isn't it? You won't stand out anyway," my dad said, and the three of them seemed satisfied on their own. I kept silent, inwardly disgusted, thinking they were just picking on me. Later, we were supposed to head to the venue in my dad's car, and I sat in the back seat. We were on the road for a while when suddenly my dad said, "Let's stop by the drugstore." The plan was to buy some drinks and also take a bathroom break. I needed to use the restroom as well, so I followed my parents there, finished my business, and returned to the car. But when I tried to open the car door, something felt off. I pulled on the door, but it wouldn't open. I tried again, but it was still locked. "Hey, open the door." I called out to my family inside the car through the window. But my mom, dad, and brother just grinned and stared at me, making no move to unlock the door. "What's going on?" I asked, a bit panicked, but then my mom smirked. "Now the whole family is finally together, huh?" My dad and brother nodded at her words, grinning even more as they looked at me. Then, as my dad stepped on the accelerator, the car started moving. "Wait, hold on. Don't leave me behind." I shouted loudly, but the car showed no signs of stopping and kept moving further away. My heart trembled with anger and disappointment as I watched the car disappear from view. I had cleared my schedule for this day and, despite my reluctance, had prepared to participate, yet my family enjoyed leaving me behind. They are unbelievable. I stood there, stunned, feeling as if the last thread connecting me to my family had snapped inside me. I won't expect anything from this family anymore. There's no need for me to care about them anymore. They'll regret making me angry. I took a deep breath right there to calm myself, then immediately pulled out my smartphone and called the president of the company. "Abby, I look forward to today." I heard the president's calm voice over the phone. "Actually, I regret to say this, but due to sudden circumstances, it looks like I won't be able to attend the wedding." I explained the situation in as calm a voice as I could manage. "Oh, sudden circumstances. May I ask what happened?" the president asked, sounding concerned. I explained that my family had left me behind and how they always hindered me and even today had treated me this way. "I've reached my limit. I don't want to be with them as a family anymore, so I've decided not to attend today. I apologize in advance if my absence is rude to you or your daughter. Sorry for my selfishness." "That's unbelievable." The president was silent for a while, seemingly confused. "Abby, I understand now how much you've struggled within your family. Honestly, marrying my daughter to someone treated like that. I may have to rethink this." Hearing the president's words, I felt a mix of surprise and relief. "Mr. President, I'm sorry for bringing up such an unfortunate matter, but I feel sorry for your daughter being upset by such a family. I understand your feelings, Miss Abby. I want my daughter to be happy, so I apologize, but we will have to cancel the wedding. I will explain everything to my daughter," the president said firmly. "Thank you. I sincerely appreciated his understanding. My brother and parents had brought this upon themselves, and I felt genuinely relieved that the president's daughter would not have to suffer within this family." I then hailed a taxi to head to the venue. Knowing that the wedding was cancelled had become somewhat the highlight of my day, curious to see the expressions on my brother's and parents' faces. About an hour later, when I arrived at the venue, I saw my brother and parents standing dazed in a corner of the lobby. They hadn't noticed me yet and wore expressions filled with panic and confusion. I decided to keep some distance and observe what was happening. It seemed they had just been informed at the reception that the wedding was cancelled. They probably never expected the ceremony to be cancelled right in front of them. My brother and dad were repeatedly talking to the staff, who kept apologetically repeating the same response. Watching my family stand there, I couldn't help but feel a surge of schadenfreude. Then, they finally noticed me and started walking towards me. "Abby, why are you here? We left you at the drugstore, didn't we?" My brother spoke with a voice full of disbelief and irritation. It was clear from his face that he was unsettled by the unexpected situation. My mom continued with a stern face. "That's right, normally you'd just go home, wouldn't you? Why did you come here on purpose?" It seemed they were embarrassed that their wedding cancellation had been exposed to me, whom they always ridiculed. They were visibly uncomfortable and avoided eye contact. Standing before them, I smiled broadly. "Why did I come here? It's simple. I wanted to see your surprised faces when you were told that the wedding you were looking forward to was cancelled." As I said this, my brother and parents widened their eyes and seemed lost for words. My brother raised his voice, a mix of shock and irritation clear on his face. "Why, how do you know about that? Do you know something?" At that moment, firm footsteps approached from behind, and the president, the dad of my brother's fiancée, appeared. His imposing presence made my brother and parents stiffen in surprise. "Mr. President, why was the wedding cancelled? We haven't been informed about anything." My brother pleaded desperately, as if he had no part in the cancellation. The president looked at him calmly yet with a piercing gaze and slowly began to speak. "Do you want to know why it was cancelled?" After glancing at me, he turned his eyes back to my brother. "It's because you insulted and angered a very important business partner of mine, someone I care deeply about." My brother and parents froze, unable to believe the situation unfolding before them. I listened silently to the president's words. "What do you mean? Who is this important business partner? I don't remember meeting anyone like that. If we did upset someone, we apologize. So, can the cancellation be reversed?" My brother was confused and frantically made excuses. But the president remained unmoved and continued firmly. "Indeed, you might not have known who that business partner was. But that does not excuse your disrespectful behavior. And I cannot entrust my precious daughter to people like you." My mom, panicking, pleaded with the president. "Mr. President, please reconsider. We've all been looking forward to this day as a family. To call off the marriage is just too much." However, the president dismissed her plea with a shake of his head. "I cannot become family with people who hurt others like this. I have no intention of entrusting my daughter to people who so casually demean and scorn others." My brother, still unable to grasp the situation, desperately pressed the president. "Please, give me a chance to apologize. I'd like to meet and apologize from the bottom of my heart." My brother pleaded with the president. The president looked at him calmly and said, "I see, you want a chance to apologize?" He then slowly turned his gaze to me before returning it to my brother and parents, and continued quietly. "What should we do, Abby?" The president looked at me with intent and asked a question. At that instant, my brother and parents turned to me, their faces showing confusion. "Why are you asking Abby? She's just family. What's the use of asking her about who we should apologize to?" My brother asked, clearly confused, but the president smiled, maintaining his firm demeanor, and responded. "The person you want to apologize to is Abby here." At those words, my brother and parents' expressions froze instantly. My brother stared at me in disbelief. "Wait. Abby is the important business partner, the manager." My mom also widened her eyes, staring at me in disbelief. "It can't be. Abby is in such a position." My dad also couldn't hide his shock, and after staring at me for a moment, he muttered, "You can't be." I quietly met their gazes, maintaining a calm demeanor. The president spoke firmly to them. "Abby is a very important business partner to our company. She is indispensable to us. And you insulted her, even leaving her stranded on the way here today. As a result, the wedding has been cancelled. My brother stood dumbfounded for a while, then eventually murmured in a small voice. Sorry, I went too far. His words lacked their usual arrogance, now just filled with confusion and regret. However, I shook my head with a smile. It's too late now. You just reaped the results of how you've treated me and what you did to me today. It's time for you to take responsibility for your actions. The president also looked sternly at my brother and parents. I will not entrust my daughter to people like you. After the president said it, my brother and parents turned ghostly pale and were left without anything to say. As relatives and my brother's friends began to arrive at the venue, the atmosphere shifted dramatically once it became known that the wedding was cancelled. What? Why? Surprised voices arose, and soon it was clear to everyone that the cancellation was one-sided from the bride's side. Relatives and friends who were unaware of the reason started to question my brother and parents, but they just stood there with their heads down, faces pale. Seriously, it got cancelled? Really? A relative asked, half in disbelief, as murmurs of laughter began to spread, and soon my brother and parents became the subject of ridicule. All that bragging about marrying up, and now this is just an embarrassment, huh? My brother's friends whispered sarcastically, looking at him with almost disdainful expressions. The scoffs directed at my brother grew louder, and my parents also lost their composure, standing awkwardly. Watching this from a distance, I quietly greeted the company president and left the venue. Everything was over, and I felt as if the burdens in my heart had finally dissolved. Witnessing the moment my family faced the consequences of their own deeds was a closure for me, who had long given up on expecting anything from them. Naturally, I heard about what happened to my brother and parents afterward. The wedding was called off by the bride's family without any input from anyone else, and now my brother and parents are the butt of jokes among our relatives and friends, too embarrassed to even go out. Especially my brother, who had bragged about marrying up during the engagement, faced increased ridicule, shattering his superficial pride. With his pride deeply wounded, my brother seemed to have broken completely, losing interest in his work and eventually quitting. My parents, who had pampered him, were now exhausted from supporting a son who lingered at home like a parasite. But that was the path they chose, and they got what they deserved. Meanwhile, I continued to immerse myself in work. Surrounded by supportive colleagues and trustworthy friends, I'm deeply grateful for where I am now. Having completely cut ties with my family, I've firmly decided to walk my own path in life. From now on, I'll just keep moving forward on my own path, no longer held back by the past. I'm determined to enjoy and build up happy moments in the life I've chosen.